Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30.
College football. College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
Hello. Welcome into another week of outputting our coverage. We are all still alive after the disaster in Auburn this weekend. We will try to break down what happened, where Auburn goes from here, but the rest of the college football world spins onward. Contrary to many Auburn fans' belief, nuclear waste meltdown has not occurred yet. There are still other games being played.
For now, that we know of.
For now. As always, I'm Andy, joined by my co-host, David. We'll talk about Auburn and Alabama, talk about the rest of the SEC action, got some more good games coming up this weekend, and of course, the Pick 10 that has become fiercely competitive, sweeping the nation, only second to the official Outputting Our Coverage blog, of course.
Which is wildly successful. We actually have a poll out there right now. I'm going to leave it up for the rest of the week. But we'll talk about the poll results a little later. We've got some really interesting articles written by yours truly, and we've actually got plans for a couple guest writers in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, we're taking the nation by storm with our sports-related intelligence and knowledge, so you might as well hop on the train before it runs over you.
I think so.
That's all I can say.
It's an aggressive train.
Yeah, it's a very, very aggressive train. Let's move on to the way we always like to start the show here, good calls and bad calls. We have lots of each, more of the bad variety. What do you want to do first, bad or good?
Let's get bad out of the way first.
Yeah, I'm trying to move forward right now from a lot of things, so let's go ahead and do the bad call. That's a good call, to do the bad call first. So,
Bad call.
go ahead.
All right, my bad call was definitely Nebraska beating Ohio State. I was kind of going out on a limb a little bit. I know they hadn't really shown a lot this year. I thought they'd have their breakout game this week, and they hung in there for a little while. 2.5 quarters, they were right there, and then the wheels fell off, and they got dominated.
Yeah. Speaking of Big Ten teams, you should definitely go to the official Outputting Our Coverage blog, outputtingourcoverage.wordpress.com, and check out David's post on the Big Ten. It pretty much sums up the state of things there. Pretty sad state of affairs.
Pretty bad. It's just who's left.
Yeah. Ohio State, I think at this point, clearly the best team in the Big Ten.
Most definitely.
But they're not eligible for anything. So
Too bad, so sad.
What are you going to do? I don't know. My bad call for this week, Georgia Bulldogs. I mentioned on the show last week that I knew it was a bad decision to pick them, but I still did it anyway. I just had this feeling, and as usual, Mark Richt lays another egg in a big game. I think we're going to find as the season goes on that Georgia is more overrated than we thought, never really deserved to be rated that highly anyway. For some reason, their defense still is not gelling properly, but that was a dumb one.
That was pretty bad, but I think that's why everybody loves us, is because we can look at a situation, know that we're wrong, and just charge on headstrong anyway. So I think that's just kind of what makes us.
That's the Auburn offensive philosophy at this point. Just, you're doing it wrong, but whatever, who cares? Let's keep doing it. So
I love it.
Yeah. All right, good calls. There were some good things that happened this weekend.
Were there a lot?
Not a lot, but taking solace in something good here.
I think my good call was probably North Carolina over Virginia Tech. Kind of went out on a limb because if you looked at Virginia Tech's trend, they were supposed to trend up this week, and they just barely missed out on that one. So North Carolina with a pretty impressive win for them. They don't get a lot of those in Tar Heel country until basketball season. So UNC.
Good call.
Yeah, that's a great call. My good call, Florida over LSU. I think this may be one of the first upsets I've predicted correctly all year, so I'm taking a lot of pride in that one. Although I'm still not really sold that Florida is an awesome team. I think the win may have had more to do with LSU's internal issues than Florida being a true contender.
And we're not really going to know with Florida because they have a pretty easy rest of the schedule. I mean, they've only got one or two marquee games.
They do have to play South Carolina a week after this week, I think.
That's going to determine the East, I think.
Yeah, but they get them at home. They get them at the Swamp.
That's true.
That's going to be a good one to look forward to. definitely something for you to look forward to. On the other side of this short commercial break, we're going to talk about what the heck happened in Auburn this weekend, talk about where they are going forward. We'll talk about Alabama, too, traveling up to Missouri for their first game there this coming weekend. It's all happening right here on the other side of outputting our coverage.
It's time for SEC preview.
SEC,
Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count.
SEC,
College football robber barons.
SEC,
Yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong.
and Missouri and Texas A&M as well.
Yeah, SEC preview.
Here we go.
Here we go indeed. It is time for SEC preview review.
Oh, I like it. I like that so much better.
We'll do both here. David, I've been trying to think about what exactly I was going to say about the Auburn game for the entire week, and I need a little bit more time to think, so why don't you go first?
All right. Well, once again, if you want a really good recap, go to our blog at outputtingourcoverage.wordpress.com and see what Andy had to say. Pretty raw. I mean, that was right after the game, so you get a lot of emotion on that one. It was a really good article. But I think the biggest thing for Auburn is no offense. I mean, you've got to get something going. It's just the same thing week after week, and you keep seeing it fail. You wonder when they're going to try to change something.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. I was at the game this weekend, and the defense continues to be good enough. They're by no stretch an elite defense at this point. They may be taking strides in that direction, but the offense has just got so many issues, starting with a complete lack of any type of offensive identity.
Right.
Auburn was trying to do anything and everything in this game. We saw some spread elements thrown back in there. Maybe that's to help Kyle Frazier and some of the other offensive players feel more comfortable, but whatever it wasn't working.
I think they're going in the wrong direction. We've talked about it in the last couple of weeks about their I formation and being able to pound the ball at opponents, and we see it week after week have success, but they will not stick with it. What's up with that, Andy?
I don't know. I think they're trying to get a little bit too cute. And obviously a lot of defenses are aware that Kyle Frazier or Clint Mosley or whoever the quarterback may be is not playing very well right now. So they are putting 8-9 guys in the box, whatever they have to do. So I think offensively Auburn's kind of overreacting to that and saying, well, they're going to put all these guys up here against us. We got to try to spread it out and throw the ball.
Right.
But Auburn's just not built to do that right now, and it's frustrating for a lot of Auburn fans to see this heralded transfer, Jay Prosh, All-American fullback, guy who just wants to hit people. It's very frustrating to just see him on the sidelines 90% of the game.
It is, and we talked about it at the beginning of the year. I thought that Auburn was too soft. Every one of their skill position players was known for speed. They didn't have one hard-nosed runner except for Prosh.
Right.
And I thought he could really be the key. If they were going to have that kind of successful year that everybody at Auburn thought they would have, he'd really be the key in the offense. And it's extremely disappointing to see him sitting on the bench as often as he is.
Yeah, and then another running back who's had a lot of success, Trey Mason, he only got like 7 or 8 carries in this game. So it's just very, very puzzling play calling. Chiswick said in his press conferences this week that he's going to get Shutter more involved in the offense. It's hard for me to believe that he wasn't already involved. I really don't think that Loeffler has been calling plays by his own design. I mean, I think he's been calling the plays, but I don't think he's been the one deciding what types of plays to call. So that just makes me more nervous.
And a lot of people don't know how that's carried out during a week. You might be the one calling the plays on Sunday, but you already have a plan, and that plan is gathered with all the other coaches in tons of meetings leading up to the week. So that's not your plan. That's an entire coach's staff.
And that's kind of been the hallmark of Chiswick's tenure. Like it or not, he's a meddler.
Right.
We saw last year Chiswick got all up in Gus Malzahn's business and said, hey, you got to slow your offense down to help out our defense. And that was, in my opinion, pretty much the reason that Malzahn was willing to take a head coaching job at Arkansas State.
Right.
Or at least a major contributing factor. Now we kind of see it happening again on the offensive side of the ball with a new coordinator. I don't know. I mean, I think pretty much the only place to go from here is you got to commit to the run game. That's the only way Auburn can have any type of success.
You do, but the offensive line is just not ready yet. I mean, They are getting cut through on every position. And until you get that offensive line to develop or get the players that you need in, it could continue to be like this.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, again, can have quicker success in the run game than the pass game.
And that's true.
Their pass protection hasn't been very good. There were 8 sacks in the game Saturday, which is more than Arkansas had the entire season beforehand. And a lot of people want to pin that on Kyle Frazier. Honestly, I was extremely angry at the start of the second half when Clint Mosley came into the game. I thought that was a ridiculously stupid decision. I thought Kyle Frazier was having probably his best game of the season. Now, that's not saying a lot, but his passes look better. He's making better decisions. He just made a couple of key errors.
If you wanted Mosley in, you should have put him in at the beginning of the game, not yank him right in the middle of the game. So I didn't like that move either. While we're on the quarterback situation, let me ask you, in the long run, if you had to make them drop back and throw 100 passes, who do you think would do better? Any of the Auburn quarterbacks or Arkansas's wide receiver who threw the touchdown pass?
Yeah. I mean, that's a pick 'em right now, because
that was a terribly accurate pass.
It was good, and Auburn's young players they bit all over that one.
Right.
They definitely fell for the fake. But the quarterback situation it's another disgrace right now. I mean, I feel like we're back in August with the coaches saying we're still evaluating to see who's going to start. I would expect to hear something today. I would be 99% sure that it's going to be Kyle Frazier, just based on what I saw. And coaches have said that after going back and looking at film, he looks better. I think that's who it's going to be for the future. That's who it needs to be. But it's just not a lot of sure answers for Auburn right now. There's no easy solution to this problem.
And it doesn't get easier for them, though. This week they have Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is still at the top of the SEC in rushing attack, so they're really going to test that defense.
Yeah. A frustrating thing about the defense for me is the continued inability to get any type of pressure on the defensive line. With defensive linemen that have experience, there's a lot of depth at those positions.
And they have talent.
It's very frustrating to see that. And I listened to another podcast mentioning that maybe now's the time to start trying to put some of the corners out there on an island, get some press coverage so you can blitz some more guys. Maybe that's what it's going to take.
But do you trust your corners on an island?
Right. And to further on that, do you trust them? And if things go wrong and they get burnt, the offense has a complete inability to respond to that.
You cannot go down by 7 or 14 and expect to win.
Right, and then you just get yourself into a track meet that Auburn has no chance of keeping up in.
I really think that the big problem with Auburn right now is their scheme on defense. The scheme is not – they don't have the players for the scheme, and they cannot get the pressure without changing something up. And I think your defensive coordinator is too bullheaded, being that he was in the NFL and it worked in the NFL. He's going to run his system whether it's working or not, and that's really detrimental to Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the jury's kind of still out on Van Gorder. Obviously, it's a lot easier to focus your anger on Scott Loeffler at this point, but it is a fair point to say that Van Gorder was in the NFL, his scheme worked there, and the last time he was in college, spread offenses were not really in vogue at that point.
And they really have just started to catch on in the NFL, so he's about 3 years behind.
Right. So I think he's a smart guy. I'm going to give him some time to figure out how to formulate a strategy against that. And obviously, we got bigger fish to fry than that right now anyway. So my anger can only be spread so thin, David.
That's true.
I don't know.
And Ole Miss isn't really known for their passing, so that might not be so much of a problem, but they are going to have to get some penetration on the line to stop that running game.
Right. So let me ask you this. Let's take it to a little bit of a higher level at this point.
Okay.
Your thoughts on Gene Chizik?
Gene Chizik is a great promoter. I think he's an awesome recruiter. I don't think he's a good developer of talent. I think he can inspire people for short bursts, but I think he's one of those coaches that after about 3 years, their words become just empty in the locker room because people have heard them. I think everybody gets used to the act, and I really don't see Chizik staying in Auburn for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, this is I don't know. It's a complete enigma to me right now what to think about Chizik. On the one hand, you look at what he's done since he's been here. He won a national championship. That's great. And I was always one of those guys that hated it when people would say, The only reason that Auburn won the national championship was because of Cam Newton and Nick Fairley. Gene Chiswick's not that great of a coach. What you're going to get is what he had at Iowa State.